Welcome to Messages from the Universe with Laurie Wondra. Laurie is an internationally renowned psychic medium, author, and shamanic practitioner, sharing insights from angels, guides, wisdom keepers, and teachers of the universe that help you navigate life's mysteries and transformations.
Hello, I am Laurie Wondra, and thank you for listening. I've been getting a lot of messages about our spiritual evolution, and today I want to talk about the myths that we seem to outgrow while we're on our spiritual path. As we continue growing, I think every sincere spiritual seeker eventually discovers something that surprises them. I believe when you remain curious, you allow space for the unexpected. This is where the universe drops in those fun things that we never saw coming. It is here in this unexpected space that we have the greatest experiences. We have those aha moments. We have those things that stop us in our tracks. We seem to let go of what we think it should be and rather allow it to be exactly what it is. And many of the beliefs that inspired us in the beginning eventually become more of a nuance, not because they were wrong, but because they were just incomplete. We experienced them at the place we were at that time, with the emotions we were most familiar with, the mental beliefs, the processes that we held at that time. But as we evolve and as our emotions change and mature, our mental processes and our beliefs shift, we have a different lens. We have a lens that we look through, and if that lens is colored with too much fixed expectations, we can only see what we expect to see. I think one of the most valuable gifts of evolution is to not have any expectations, to just be open and have this space where the universe can drop in, and then we can look at it in its purest form. Spiritual maturity doesn't erase what we've learned. It expands our understanding of it. It teaches us to experience more, learn more, release more. We become open to admitting we didn't know. We had an old belief or where we were afraid to explore. I chuckle because I've written books that I look back on and I'm like, where was I thinking at that point that I wrote that? And I discover my beliefs have changed. The information coming to me from the universe and my filtering systems have evolved. And like children learning, let's take mathematics. We don't throw away what we once discovered. Let's say the basics of addition or algebra. We simply realize that there's more to learn. There's more places to apply those concepts. And the same is true on the spiritual path. There are ideas many of us begin with that later evolve into something deeper and richer and far more compassionate. And it's okay to say, I have evolved beyond that, or I did believe that 10 or 15 years ago, but I'm different now. And I'd like to explore a few of those deeper ideas that you yourself may have found that you have evolved through. Let's peel these back. Myth number 1. More spiritual means happier. I think this is probably one of the biggest misunderstandings about spirituality. Many people quietly assume that if they meditate enough, heal enough, pray enough, attend enough workshops or certifications, or raise their vibration high enough, they will eventually stop feeling sadness. They imagine that life will become peaceful, relationships will become effortless, and everything will begin to flow beautifully. But life does not work that way. Some of the most spiritually grounded people I have ever met have also experienced tremendous sorrow. They have buried loved ones, faced illness, endured heartbreak, questioned their purpose, and wondered whether God or the universe was even listening. Their spirituality did not protect them from painful experiences of being human. We have emotions so we can feel these emotions, and we use the emotions to process the events in our life. So spirituality does not remove life's challenges. It gives us a different way to move through them. It helps us meet sorrow when losing ourselves, remain connected to hope during uncertainty, and to find meaning even when life does not unfold as we expected it. Over time, happiness becomes less dependent on our circumstances, and peace becomes something we learn to cultivate from within. Now, myth number 2, being intuitive means I'm always right. As someone, me, who has worked professionally as an intuitive and medium for many, many years, in fact, most of my life, I believe this is an especially important myth to address. Intuition is a beautiful and certainly a powerful gift, but it does not make us perfect or infallible. No matter how experienced or how spiritually connected we become, we're still human. Our hopes, our fears, our expectations, our personal experiences, and emotions can influence how we receive or interpret intuitive information. Sometimes the message itself may be clear, but our understanding of it may be incomplete. We may interpret it through the lens of what we want to happen, what we are afraid will happen, or what makes the most sense to us at that moment. We listen through the lens of where we are at that given time. This is why even the most experienced intuitives and mediums must continue learning, continue questioning, and refining their discernment. Humility protects intuition, while arrogance can distort it. The wisest intuitives I have known are comfortable saying, "This is what I'm sensing," or rather than saying, "This is what it is," or "This is what I'm declaring." This is what I'm getting. This is the absolute truth. They understand that intuitive information may offer guidance, insight, or possibility without revealing every detail of a much larger picture. Real wisdom respects what we receive while still leaving room for personal choice, intuition, free will, timing, and mystery. This is why I love teaching intuition, because it's so powerful, and it's one of our gifts that continues to evolve. Now, myth number 3, high vibration means never feeling grief. Some people become frightened whenever they experience sadness or grief because they believe these emotions mean they're lowering their vibration. We hear so much about sadness and grief and anger or low vibrations and stay out of those spaces. So we try to suppress our pain. We sometimes move through it too quickly, or we cover it up with positive thinking. But feeling grief does not mean we have failed spiritually, or we've even lost our connection to the light. It just means we're human, and that we have loved, and that we have that ability to feel and express that emotion. I believe grief is one of love's deepest expressions. If we've loved deeply, we will also grieve deeply, because love and loss cannot be separated. Spiritual maturity does not ask us to deny our sorrow. It actually gives us the courage to acknowledge it, to honor it, to allow it to move through us. So avoiding grief does not raise our vibration. It simply leaves the pain waiting to be felt. Living at a higher vibration does not mean we never cry or we never miss somebody. It means grief can move through us without hardening into bitterness or causing us to abandon hope. We can miss someone while still trusting that love has not ended. We can feel sorrow and gratitude at the same time, honoring both what we have lost and what that love brought into our lives. The ability to hold both is not a weakness at all. It's actually spiritual maturity. Myth number 4, awakening ends suffering. Many people begin their spiritual journey believing that awakening is the finish line, a moment when everything becomes clear and suffering finally ends. And they imagine that once they have healed enough or reached a certain level of awareness, they will no longer make mistakes. They'll no longer experience disappointments or face painful circumstances. But in reality, awakening is not the end of the journey. It's actually a beginning of a new way of experiencing. I smile when people say, when I had my awakening, or when I awakened. That's just the beginning. Awakening does not prevent us from losing people, from facing uncertainty, or even having difficult days. We may still feel hurt and confused and angry and frightened or emotionally overwhelmed. Being spiritually awake does not make us immune to the realities of being human. The difference is that we become more aware of what is happening within us and less likely to allow a painful experience to define our identity or determine our future. There's also a difference between experiencing pain and becoming consumed by suffering. Pain is a natural response to loss, to change, to disappointment, to uncertainty. Suffering is often intensified by the thoughts and beliefs we attach to that pain. We get wrapped in thoughts such as, this will never get better, or I can't handle this, or my life is ruined, or nothing good will ever come again. Now, these thoughts can be understandable, especially when we're emotionally challenged, but they can deepen our pain and make it more difficult to see a way forward. Now, how we navigate change and challenge and the hope and faith and belief we carry with us directly affects how much we suffer. We can acknowledge that something is painful without believing it will destroy us, without believing that things will never get better. We can feel deeply disappointed without surrendering our hope. We can grieve what has changed while trusting that life is still unfolding and that we have the strength to meet what comes next. And this is not about denying difficult emotions, or it's not about forcing ourselves to remain positive, but it is about remembering that our present pain is an experience we are moving through, not the entirety of who we are. Instead of remaining trapped in the question, why is this happening to me? We gradually begin asking, what now? What do I need? Or how can I move through this with greater awareness? Awakening gives us the ability to meet suffering with perspective, compassion, and choice. Life does not necessarily become easier, but we become wiser, more resilient, and better able to trust ourselves as we find our way through it. Myth number 5, spiritual gifts equal spiritual maturity. Now, this is an especially important myth to understand because spirituality ability and spiritual maturity are not the same thing. Someone can be an extraordinary psychic, an exceptional medium, a gifted healer, a brilliant astrologer, or a remarkable channel, and still struggle with humility, relationships, boundaries, accountability, or emotional regulation. A spiritual gift may allow someone to perceive what others cannot, but it does not automatically resolve personal wounds or teach them how to navigate every human experience wisely. Spiritual gifts are abilities. Character is something entirely different. A gift may develop through natural sensitivity, study, practice, birth gift, or years of working with energy and intuition. But character develops through living, through the choices we make when we are challenged, corrected, disappointed, or asked to take responsibility. It's revealed in how we treat people when no one is watching, how we respond when our ego is bruised, and whether we're willing to acknowledge the impact of our actions. For example, a healer may be able to sense exactly where another person is carrying pain while remaining unaware of the unresolved pain affecting their own relationships. An intuitive may offer remarkable clarity to a client but struggles to receive honest feedback from someone close to them. A teacher may speak beautifully about compassion and forgiveness, yet have difficulty apologizing after causing harm. Now, this does not necessarily mean their gifts are false. It may simply mean their spiritual abilities and personal development are unfolding at different rates. Every human being on this earth goes through healing of those wounds, and being aware of them is part of the ability to heal them. History is filled with people that are gifted, but they also lack humility. They struggle in relationships, or they possess tremendous insight into others while still remaining unable to see themselves clearly. That's not always evidence of failure or fraud. Sometimes it's evidence of our shared humanity. However, spiritual gifts should never be used to excuse harmful behavior. Greater influence and spiritual ability bring greater responsibility. The responsibility to practice strong ethics, cultivate self-awareness, respect boundaries, and remain accountable. Spiritual maturity also requires courage. It is one thing to receive guidance, but it's another to act upon it when doing so feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Sometimes courage means taking a thoughtful risk, stepping into unfamiliar opportunity, or moving forward without knowing exactly how everything will unfold. And at other times, it means speaking up, telling the truth, setting a boundary, or addressing a behavior that might be causing harm. Sometimes the bravest choice is to stop trying to repair what cannot be repaired and walk away from a situation, or walk away from a relationship or a path that no longer supports our well-being. Being brave does not mean we're never afraid. It means fear is not given complete authority over our choices. Spiritual maturity helps us view risk differently. Instead of only asking, what might happen if I do this? We also learn to ask, what might it cost me if I continue doing nothing? Remaining silent, staying small, or holding on to what is familiar may feel safer in the moment, but it can also keep us disconnected from our own truth. Courage asks us to discern whether wisdom is guiding us or if fear is controlling us. Now, courage must also be accompanied by discernment. Not every uncomfortable experience is a sign that we should leave. Not every risk is ours to take on. Sometimes growth asks us to stay, communicate, and work through that discomfort, but sometimes it asks us to take action or speak a truth that may not be welcomed. At other times, it asks us to release our attachment, honor our boundaries, and walk away. Spiritual maturity is learning to recognize the difference and being willing to follow through once we do. A helpful practice is to ask ourselves, does the way I live support what I teach? Am I open to being corrected? Can I admit when I'm wrong? Do people feel respected and safe in my presence? Is fear protecting me from genuine danger, or is it preventing me from growing? And does the situation require me to stay, to take action, to speak up, or to walk away? Now, these questions are not intended to diminish our gifts. They help us remain grounded and ensure that our character continues developing alongside our abilities. Our spiritual gifts do not exempt us from the work of being human. I can't say that enough. Our spiritual gifts do not give us a free pass. We still have to do the work of being human. They invite us to do that work more consciously. The true measure of spiritual maturity is not simply what we can see, sense, channel, or heal. It is how responsibly we carry those gifts, how courageously we live what we know, and who we become while we use them. Myth number 6, love and light means saying yes to everything. You may remember at one point I did share that There was a period in my life that I said for a year I was going to say yes to everything. And it was both fabulous as well as scary. But love and light doesn't mean having to say yes to everything. One of the most misunderstood ideas in modern spirituality is that being loving requires endless acceptance. We may believe that spirituality or spiritually mature people should always be agreeable, endlessly patient, and willing to forgive without limit, to always be available. We may think that saying no, expressing anger, setting a boundary, or walking away from a relationship means that we no longer are acting from love. But love is not the same as agreement, compliance, or unlimited access to our time and energy. At the core of who we are, I believe we are built upon a foundation of love and compassion. Love is not simply an emotion we feel when life is peaceful or relationships are easy. It is a way of meeting the world. It's choosing. This is how I greet the day. Love appears in our willingness to be patient, to listen without immediately judging, and to seek understanding before responding. It shows up when we offer encouragement, extend grace, forgive mistakes, sit beside someone who is hurting, or make room for another person's experience. Often, love is expressed through quiet, ordinary choices that communicate, I see you, I hear you, you matter. But love also requires discernment. Listening does not mean we must agree. Understanding someone's pain does not require us to accept harmful behavior. Forgiveness does not mean pretending something never happened. And compassion does not require us to repeatedly place ourselves in situations where we feel disrespected, manipulated, or diminished. We can recognize the wounds behind someone's actions while still holding them accountable for the impact of those actions to themselves or others. So sometimes love says yes, and sometimes love says no. Love may ask us to remain patient and continue a difficult conversation, but it may also ask us to speak a truth that another person does not want to hear. It may require us to establish a clear boundary, refusing manipulation, or protect someone who is vulnerable. At times, the most loving decision may be to end an unhealthy relationship or walk away from a situation that continually causes harm. Saying no does not automatically mean we're acting from anger, judgment, or fear. A thoughtful no can be an expression of self-respect and spiritual clarity. We can care about someone and still limit their access to us. We can wish them healing without accepting responsibility for healing them. We can love someone and recognize that remaining close to them is no longer healthy. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional access. And as spiritual healers, mediums, teachers, those boundaries are becoming important because people are looking for light and help. And sometimes you have to say no, because without discernment, compassion simply becomes enabling. Without boundaries, generosity can turn into exhaustion or resentment. Love without wisdom can unintentionally prolong unhealthy patterns, both for ourselves and for others. And when we continually protect people from the consequences of their own choices, we may believe we're helping them when in reality, we may be preventing them from taking responsibility and for growing. I always tell people, you would never intentionally prevent someone from completing their mission, their purpose of why they are here on earth. Let them have the experience. Real love includes honesty, responsibility, and truth. It asks us to consider not only what feels kind in the moment, but what supports healing and well-being over time. And sometimes kindness is gentle and reassuring. At other times, it's clear. It can be firm and unwavering. Both can come from love when they're guided by wisdom rather than punishment or the need to control. Most importantly, real compassion includes compassion for ourselves. Our needs, our safety matters. Our energy matters. Our emotional and physical well-being matter. We're not required to abandon ourselves in order to prove that we are loving or spiritual. Mature love holds space for others without losing itself. It listens with patience and responds with compassion, speaks with honesty, and establishes boundaries when necessary. And love is not always easy, but when joined with truth and discernment, it becomes strong enough to protect, heal, and transform. I have personally been in this field of healing for over 30 decades, actually since birth. And I've learned to say yes, but more importantly, I've learned to say no respectfully. Over this time, I'll share, I've had people say to me, everything I do should be free because I've been given this gift. Or I should make myself available 24/7. I should always say yes because I can, because I have gifts. But this is about reality and respect and boundaries and loving yourself and still be in this place of giving, but also giving to yourself first. You don't always have to say yes. Myth number 7, spiritual growth looks extraordinary. Perhaps one of the greatest surprises on the spiritual path is discovering that genuine growth rarely looks extraordinary. We may expect spiritual transformation to arrive through powerful visions, profound awakenings, sacred journeys, or moments of unmistakable divine intervention. And those experiences can be meaningful, but they're not necessarily where our deepest growth occurs. Most spiritual maturity develops quietly through the ordinary choices we make each and every day. Recently, I was talking to my son and I sat back and I said, how do I know what I know? Why am I where I am today? Where does this information come? I marveled at what has been seeping in through an entire lifetime. What might spiritual growth look like? Well, it might look like keeping our word when it might be easier to make an excuse. It is being honest when the truth feels uncomfortable, and maybe apologizing when we realize we've hurt someone. It's respecting another person's boundaries while also learning to honor our own. It's listening to understand rather than listening for an opportunity to defend ourselves, correct someone, or win the conversation. Growth can be found in sitting beside someone who is grieving without trying to fix their pain, without trying to fill the space. It appears when we help quietly without needing recognition, praise, or public acknowledgement. It's treating strangers with kindness, maybe simply returning a shopping cart, remaining patient in traffic, and remembering that the people serving us, helping us, or waiting on us are human beings carrying lives and challenges that we might not be aware of. Spiritual growth also looks like showing up consistently. It means caring for the people we love, following through on our responsibilities, and offering our presence even when we do not have the perfect words, because there really aren't perfect words. It's just being there. It's choosing patience with our family, extending grace when someone makes a mistake, and learning to forgive ourselves for the times when we did not know what we know now. These choices may seem small, but they reveal how deeply our spiritual understanding has become integrated into our lives. We may have a beautiful meditation practice, attending meaningful retreats, receiving powerful messages, and understanding complex spiritual teachings. But the real question is how those experiences change the way we live. Are we becoming more patient? Are we more willing to listen? Do we take responsibility for our actions? Are we kinder to ourselves and others? Are we able to sense the energy of the space we're in, the room we're in, the people we're with, and adjust our energy so that we're not a crashing bull into this space? Spiritual experiences may open the door, but our daily choices determine whether we walk through it. These ordinary moments rarely appear on social media. They do not create dramatic stories or provide visible proof of how spiritually evolved we are. Yet, this is where our souls truly mature. Within the small decision no one applauds, and the loving actions no one else may ever see. The extraordinary is built through ordinary choices repeated over a lifetime. Spiritual growth is not measured only by the heights we reach in meditation or the mysteries we're able to understand, but it is revealed in who we are at home, in ourselves, in our internal being, in our relationships. It's how we show up during conflict, while under pressure, and even in the quiet spaces of everyday living. In the end, our spiritual path is not separate from our life. Our life is the path. I'm sure if you've listened today, you probably can think of other myths that you might also be spinning or contemplating right. What I truly wanted to bring to you today is just the ability to let go of the old stories of spirituality. What maybe was right for you before isn't right for you today, and let it go. Perhaps this is why spiritual maturity begins to feel quieter and less dramatic. It becomes less concerned with appearances and titles and recognition and proving how much we know. We gradually stop measuring our growth by the number of spiritual experiences we've collected and began paying attention to the kind of person we are becoming. The focus shifts from appearing spiritual to living with greater awareness, integrity, compassion, and courage. I tell people, this is not something I do, it is who I am, and it is still who I am becoming. You may recognize that you're letting go of some of those old stories of spirituality when you no longer feel the need to convince others of what you believe. You just are. You become more comfortable saying, I don't know, and more willing to leave room for mystery. You can listen to someone whose beliefs are different from yours without feeling threatened or needing to correct them. You begin to understand that another person's path does not have to look like yours in order to be meaningful. You may notice that you're becoming less interested in appearing positive all the time. Instead of hiding your grief, anger, fear, disappointment, you learn to meet those emotions honestly and compassionate. You stop viewing difficult feelings as evidence that you have failed or that you've lowered your vibration. You understand that healing is not always graceful. It's not always awakening, and it doesn't always eliminate pain. But being human is not something you need to spiritually transcend. Letting go of old spiritual stories may also mean becoming more discerning about the people you follow, the teachings you accept, the energy you allow into your life. You stop assuming that someone must be emotionally mature simply because they have powerful gifts, a large following, or an impressive spiritual title. You begin paying attention to how they treat people, whether they accept responsibility, they respect boundaries, they demonstrate the values they teach. You trust your own discernment instead of giving your authority away. You may find that your spirituality becomes visible in simpler ways. You pause before reacting. You apologize without adding an excuse. You speak up when something is wrong, even when your voice trembles. You set boundaries without needing to make the other person the villain. You walk away when remaining would require you to abandon yourself. You offer patience to someone who's struggling. Listen without trying to fix them and extend kindness when no one is watching. Spiritual maturity also changes the question we ask. Instead of wondering, how spiritually advanced am I? We begin to ask, do people feel safe, respected, and heard in my presence? Am I living what I say I believe? Can I remain loving without abandoning the truth? Can I honor another person's humanity while still honoring my own? And these questions turn spirituality from an identity we display into a way of living. It's being able to sit back and ask the question, how did I get here? How did I know all this stuff? And what am I doing with it? And at that moment, we can also ask, is that still the truth? Is that still who I am? Or is there room in this space for me to learn more, to adjust more, to give more, maybe to set more boundaries? In the end, people may never know how many visions you've had, how many retreats you've attended, how many spiritual books you've read, or how many extraordinary experiences you have collected. But they will remember whether you listened when they were hurting. They will remember whether you treated them with respect, whether your words matched your actions, and whether your presence allowed them to feel seen rather than judged. Maybe that has been the lesson all along. Spirituality is not about appearing enlightened. It's about becoming more loving without becoming enabling, more honest without becoming cruel, more courageous without becoming reckless, and certainly more humble without diminishing who we are. It's about becoming more compassionate, more responsible, more authentic, and ultimately more fully human. And you really owe that to your human presence, to your being. I want to thank you for listening today. I am Laurie Wondra, and this is Messages from the Universe.
Thank you for listening to Messages from the Universe. For information about Laurie Wondra's current events or to schedule a private session, visit her website, yourlifecore.com. You can also subscribe to her monthly newsletter. Laurie also shares inspirational and informational messages on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.